All right, welcome back. President Trump emerging out of the White House's Situation Room after over an hour of deliberations with his national security team as he's weighing how to respond to the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. Sources telling CNN that the president is warming to the idea of using American military assets to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. So joining me now is someone who has spent quite a bit of time in that very room with our presidents. CNN senior military analyst Admiral James Stavridis joins us now. Admiral, I'm so grateful to have you here. And this obviously is a foreign policy challenge that has been on the table for decades, really. What would you be advising the president to do, given the facts as we, as members of the public, not privy to classified information, understand them to be right now?
Let's go back to the Situation Room itself. What the president deserves in the Situation Room is the best advice. Ultimately, he's going to make the decision. We elected him to make those kind of truly hard calls. But he needs unfettered, unvarnished, take the bark off kind of advice from his cabinet. I hope he's receiving that. I think he's probably got three broad courses of action here, Kasie. One is let the Israelis continue to pound away. Another one is put pressure on the Iranians by moving forces into the region, sort of set the table for strikes, but then use that leverage to get back to a negotiation. That would be option two. And then option three, of course, would be to conduct a strike. Your reporting indicates he's leaning toward option three. I just hope he's getting all of the advice, both the pros and the cons of each of those three courses of action.
What would you outline as the pros and cons of option three?
The pro of option three is that the United States, because we have, as we've all learned the term now, the bunker busting bombs, we have the ability with those to go after the really hard targets at Fordow outside of Tehran, which is where the centrifuge is, the heart, the beating heart of the Iranian nuclear program is located. So the big pro of that is you would take that off the table. You'd probably knock the Iranian nuclear program back by at least 2 years, maybe a bit more. So that's the big pro. The con of doing that, obviously, is that you are widening the conflict. You are inserting U.S. military into this. You are instantly making U.S. targets very attractive to the Iranians, because one of the reasons they're not striking us right now, Kasie, is because they don't want to see us get involved in the war. If we launch with the Israelis, you are going to see Iran go after U.S. targets, I firmly believe.
Just stand by for me for a second, Admiral. I want to kind of bring this out to the panel. And Kate Bedingfield, just considering what the Admiral said there, I mean, how do you look at what the options are that are on the table?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect one of the things that the president is getting, or certainly in my experience in the Situation Room, one of the things that they get from their military leadership is also an assessment of potential casualty. What does the impact on American troops look like should the Iranians start targeting U.S. Bases, as the Admiral was saying? And so I imagine that that is weighing in Trump's calculation. I think there's also, the other thing about the Situation Room is it's maybe the place in the White House most removed from politics, but it isn't entirely removed from politics. And so I have to imagine that Trump and his team are thinking about how he campaigned to get into the White House, what he promised he would do, which was not get entangled in a foreign conflict like this. And so that factors in as well.
I just wonder also, maybe the Admiral can speak to this, how we in the public could tell whether we are seeing Trump explore option two, but the reporting saying that he's warming to this. Could this be part of building pressure and, as you said, to sort of bring a negotiation about rather than actually leading to an actual kinetic action and a strike?
Admiral, what say you?
Say that would be my recommendation, and perhaps that's the course that's being followed. In terms of what the public should watch, I'll give you three things to watch. One has already moved into theater. That's aerial refueling, tankers, as they're called. A couple of dozen of those are flowing in. This is widely being reported. Number two is the aircraft carriers. There's one there already. Reportedly, a second one is moving at speed to get there. And then third, and most obviously, it's the B-2 Spirit bombers. They'll have to operate from the small island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. I suspect when they start rumbling off the runways from their home bases in the U.S., that'll probably be reported as well. The course of action to set the table, to prepare for those strikes, might have the effect of, shall we say, clarifying minds in Tehran, move them back to a negotiation, cue up Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff, and hope that we can avoid pulling into another major war in the Middle East.
Remarkably high stakes. Governor Hutchinson, do you think Republican voters would continue to stand behind President Trump if he were to expand a war in the Middle East?
I do. Now, they're in favor of his objectives and what he's trying to accomplish. The means as to how to get there and to be cautionary is important to them. It's a last resort. We understand the consequences of it. But if he explains why the national security interest of the United States is at stake, he can make his case as effectively as anyone, and I think he would have the base support.
One of the things that I think the Admiral said that's really important is what the knock-on effects might be. And the question here is, will this action make Americans safer or less safe? And there are arguments to this on either side. I mean, I'm not saying it, but this is really at the heart of this. If you go into Iran and you decapitate it, take away its nuclear capabilities, that might make Americans safer. But as he said, it could also mean that there will be attacks on U.S. interests, attacks on Americans far into the future. Will that make Americans safer? This isn't easy stuff. This is big stuff.
Admiral Stavridis, can I also ask you while I have you about this prospect of potentially assassinating the Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah of Iran? Because the president wrote about this on his True Social platform earlier today. There's been reporting around the Israelis wanting to do this, not doing it because of where we came down on it. What impact would it have if the American government moved forward with something like that?
The Ayatollah, in my view, from an Israeli perspective, is a legitimate military target. He's the head of the armed forces overall. He's the head of the country overall. And he has an immense amount of Israeli blood on his hands, and he's got plenty of American blood on his hands as well. The United States is not, at the moment, engaged in actual conflict. So for us to roll in and take out the Ayatollah, I think, is not in accordance with the laws of war. Should the Israelis go after him? That's a question for Bibi Netanyahu. He is a legitimate military target. What's the knock-on effect of that? As Lulu said a moment ago, hard to say. Here you get into domestic politics, not in the United States, but in Iran. Oftentimes when external actors come in and bomb and kill your leaders, it galvanizes a population. Look at Ukraine today. Look at the British in World War II. On the other hand, is that rotten theocracy shaking back and forth, and at a moment where something like that could tilt it over? We don't know the answer, but down that path are some decisions ahead for President Trump.
Indeed. All right, Admiral James Stavridis, so grateful for your expertise today, sir. Hope you'll come back soon. I think we're going to be covering this for quite a while. Thank you very much.
You bet.